Good evening. I don't know if we are on the air or not. Hopefully we are. I'm Elizabeth Ortega Lohmeyer. I'm your host and producer of Elections o Elecciones 2018. Tonight we have Ben Shnider. He is running for county council for District 3. And we have Santiago Tavara. He's editor of Digital Metro Latino USA and writer for El Tiempo Latino newspaper. Ben, why are you running for County Council District 3?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk a bit about the issues facing our community. I'm running for County Council because I believe deeply that it's time for a change. I think that it's getting too tough in our community for folks to get by. The cost of living is out of control. I think that we need leaders in our government who are more proactive and who are more progressive and who know what it's like to try to make ends meet in the community today, but also have what it takes to get the small stuff in government, the basic stuff in government done. So, we have to make sure that we're doing the necessary basic core functions, that the trash is getting picked up, that the potholes are getting filled, that buses are showing up on time, but we also have to make sure that we're doing what we need to take care of our people when our people need a local government the most, when there's no action at the state level, when there's no action at the federal level. We should be thinking big and working toward things like tuition-free community college, thinking big and working toward things like bus rapid transit, and doing what it takes, again, to make sure that it's a little bit easier to get by in this community that I love. So that's a bit about why I'm running.
What are your biggest challenges so far?
Sure. The biggest challenge is just talking to as many people as possible. There's only a certain amount of time between now and election day, just over 90 days. And there's so many people that I want to share my ideas with in the district. And it's not a small district. And so getting around and making sure that we're communicating with everybody. We're running 24/7 now to have conversations door to door, dinner table to dinner table, living room to living room, one person at a time. So the biggest challenge is literally covering the ground we need to cover. That's what I would say.
And the tough question is age difference. He's almost 70, you are almost 30, right?
Sure, yeah.
And he can tell your experience. He's a veteran. The county needs somebody with experience.
Sure.
What's your response?
Sure. I do think that our community needs somebody with experience. I think our community needs somebody with the experience of having to take the metro 5 days a week to get to work and knows what it's like in today's Montgomery County when the red line lets you down. Somebody who has the experience of renting an apartment in the community where over a third of our community rents and over half of those renters are cost burdened, meaning that over a third of their paycheck goes straight to rent every single month. So to be one of those renters and to know what it's like to look ahead to buying a home and trying to make that math work, I think that's the kind of experience that our community deserves right now. Somebody who's steeped in the community and knows what it's like to try to make ends meet in this community. And in terms of experience professionally, I've built grassroots organizations from the ground up and helped grow national movements like J Street from a basement startup into a national organization with a staff of over 70. I've managed budgets.
You're the founder, right?
I'm not the founder, but I started off when we were a very small team and left as a national political director when we had a staff again of over 70 and a budget of over 10 million. So I've got considerable professional experience. I've also been involved in the community throughout as a human rights commissioner in the city of Rockville and on the board of the Action Committee for Transit, where I advocated for smart growth and more transit solutions. So I have that kind of experience on the one hand, and on the other hand, again, I know what it's like to have to rely on that metro to try to make ends meet, to look ahead to buying a home. One of the many families here who's looking to start out and buy a home, and it's tough to get a foothold in today's economy. And that's the sort of skin in the game that I'm hearing people want in the doors.
And why Latinos should vote for you?
Sure. Well, I'm very proud to be endorsed by CASA in Action, and I think that one of the things that makes our community so great is the diversity of our community. And we talk a big game about that, but I don't think we do enough to honor that. So one thing I'm very proud of is as a human rights commissioner for the city of Rockville, I was part of a group that pushed successfully for a trust ordinance in the city of Rockville, which means that our city police now it's codified that our city police will not proactively enforce Trump's immigration laws, and we took that action shortly after the election when we saw the need in the community.
So
And
instead of what sanctuary city, you call it trust? What?
that's what we called it when we passed it, right?
Mhm.
That's right. So I think that it's very important. I would like to see that at the county level too. I would like to see a trust ordinance at the county level. And so that's an example of my activism. But I also think that, again, when you look at our immigrant families who are trying to get a foothold in today's economy, there's so much more we could be doing. And I want to be part of the next generation of leaders in our community that takes on that challenge and really opens up our economy to all of our families and all of our communities. So I want to work toward things like tuition-free community college so that everybody can get a quality education regardless of income, race, or zip code. I also want to add vocational options in the school so that folks who might not be looking ahead to a 4-year traditional liberal arts education will have other options to connect to high-paying jobs which are going unfilled in our communities.
That's wonderful. So what other organizations have endorsed you?
Sure. Well, I'm very proud that we're building a considerable progressive coalition for change in District 3. So in addition to CASA in Action, we have the endorsement of our county's teachers. We have the endorsement of SEIU 500. We also have the endorsement of 32BJ SEIU. La Una, our county's laborers, have also endorsed us. Sierra Club, so the sustainability community is rallying around our campaign as well. Progressive Maryland is also on board with our campaign. And I'm also really proud that leaders in our community, like the chair of our State House delegation, Shane Robinson, and Delegate Andrew Platt, have endorsed our campaign. But the endorsements that matter most to me are the endorsements that we're getting when we knock doors every day.
Yes.
And so when I knock the door of somebody and the person on the other side of that door says, you know what, I'm home a little late because I just waited for the bus for an hour longer than I should. So I'm really, really happy that you're talking about improved bus service and bus rapid transit. Those are the kinds of endorsements that matter most to me.
And I agree with you.
You are running like an outsider. Things like, you are more progressive than your opponent, but you voted for Hillary Clinton. You voted for Van Hollen. And what do you think about the divisions among Democrats in time of Trump? You know, like we've seen his rhetoric. You know, his as you say, his hate against people. Can you talk about it?
Sure. Yeah. You're right about. I have an eclectic voting record when you look back in the past. So I voted for candidates like Heather Mazur, who was the insurgent candidate for governor in 2014. You're right, I voted for Hillary Clinton. I voted for Chris Van Hollen. I voted for Jamie Raskin, who was the more progressive candidate in that race. So, but what I look for is when I'm voting for folks is what I think most voters look for, which is, does this person share my values? Are they on my side? Are they fighting for me? And does this person have what it takes to get it done? I think some of the divisions in our party get blown kind of out of sorts. I think what's challenging about that is that when we get so focused on what's dividing us, whether it's as a party or whether it's as a community or whether it's as a country, we stop talking about issues and we stop talking about solutions. So I get very frustrated with some of my progressive friends when we talk exclusively about how much we hate Trump, right? And I could spend all day, sharing a meal or sharing a beer and talking about how frustrated I am with this president who just spews hate all day and I think reflects the worst instincts of our country and of our history. And it's easy to go down that road, but that's just gonna hold us back, because if we're not talking about our ideas and what we're gonna do to make life better for people who are really struggling in this country, whether that's at the most local level or the most national level, we're not going to get anywhere. And the people who turned to Trump and the people who were won over by Trump's message aren't gonna be moved. They're going to stay in that camp. So that's where I am. I think that moving forward as a party and as a community, we have to focus on issues, we have to focus on vision, and we have to focus on solutions.
When Obama ran, he was young as you, handsome, but he didn't deliver. He left as Trump. What do you think you can change? As a generation of politicians are trying to change here. Starting from local to other issues. Are you frustrated with Democrats, how they did in the last 8 years? and we don't see any results on immigration, on racial equality, economic. That's why you're running. You're frustrated with the establishment.
Sure, that is why I'm running. I am frustrated with the conventional wisdom that says only certain things are possible, only a certain amount of progress is possible. And I don't think that's what makes our party great. Democrats are at our best when we're thinking big and going after a big vision and trying to help as many people as possible, not when we're starting with why we can't do things, but when we're starting by asking why can't we do things, let's go and try. So that is why I'm running. In terms of looking back, I'm very proud to have worked for President Obama and to organize for him on that historic 2008 campaign. And I'm still proud of some of the big things he accomplished. I'm proud of what he did on healthcare and other big issues. And I think when we reflect back, as history over time, we'll remember some of the great things he did and look back at a pretty successful presidency in the grand scheme of things. I think you're right. There's a lot more that could have been done. And I think that where we came up short, it's because we stopped organizing. So what made the 2008 campaign so special was that it was all about organizing. It was all about meeting people where they are, meeting people at their door, getting activists involved. And there was a lot of talk about how we were going to keep that organizing going afterwards and push forward on issues with that organization. And we just came up woefully short on that front. We just took our foot off the gas. So what I'm trying to do differently is, with this campaign, put together a grassroots organization such that when we get in there, we can keep organizing and go from trying to win a campaign to trying to win on issues.
Excellent. So let's go back to the county.
Sure, let's please.
And Rockville.
Much better, yeah.
What areas your district is located on?
Yeah, so District 3 is the city of Rockville, the city of Gaithersburg, Washington Grove, most of Durwood, most of Aspen Hill, and all of Leisure World. I've gotten pretty good at ticking through that. So that's District 3. It's the center of the county.
And in your advertisement, you're saying that you're going to do affordable housing, quality jobs, and universal pre-K. Tell me about universal pre-K.
Sure. So I think, when you look at the achievement gap, for instance, right? By the time we've identified it, it's too late. So we need to make sure that kids, when they're just starting out, have an equal education across the board, regardless of their family's income, regardless of what neighborhood they're in, regardless of their background, that they have a quality education from the get-go. So when you look across the country at other communities, that's something that there's been a lot of progress on that locally in other communities. I would like to see us make progress on it here. Of course, it's not the kind of thing that you can flip a switch and overnight you have universal pre-K, but we've been talking about it now for a long time, and I think we need to really, really make progress on this urgently. And it's personal for me, as somebody who's looking to start a young family here in the county. I want to make sure that all people who are in my position and looking at starting a family here, regardless of their income, can look ahead to a future where their kids will have equal opportunities.
Excellent.
And now you have a big endorsement, right, from Casa de Mera. You include that in your website? How you include the immigration issue, or your plans, or are you planning to outreach the Latino communities, in Spanish or bilingual message for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Reaching out to every single community in Montgomery County in District 3 is a significant focus of our campaign. And it's not just about winning an election. I mean, really, it's about making sure that everybody in our community knows that they're welcome here, that they have a place in this community, and that the next generation of leaders in this community, it's not just that we're comfortable having folks, live next door to us. It's that we understand that what makes Montgomery County such a special place is the diversity of our people, the diversity of their backgrounds. It's a cultural thing, and it's also a vibrancy issue. I mean, that's what draws people to our community. We're such a dynamic place because of whatever people have to offer.
I always hear that.
Yeah.
But it's specific because who we are here, because this is elecciones, then we want to know about Latino community. One quick question is, do you have Latino friends?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
So besides Casa and...
Yes. You mean just as friends that I hang out with?
Yes. I mean,
I do.
some people don't ever have friends who are from different races
Yes.
or countries.
Yes, I do.
And that's very interesting.
It's very important.
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
So I'm not going to ask you what food do you eat
Right.
with the Latino community.
Right.
But what are your plans when
Sure.
you are in office?
Sure.
Many other county council members, they don't ever hire someone who is Latino, or they don't ever hire, they don't have any information in Spanish.
Well, for our outreach on the campaign trail, we definitely are going to do outreach in Spanish and that sort of thing. But once I get in there, I'm also committed to having a very diverse staff. This is one of the more diverse districts on the county council. And I think it's really important that the folks who are serving that community reflect that community and reflect the community's values. So that's something I'm absolutely committed to. In terms of specific policies, though, I think that's important to talk about too. So like I said, I want to see a trust ordinance at the county level. I don't think that we should be proactively enforcing federal immigration law. I think our police should be focused on local laws and not enforcing hateful immigration policies.
Definitely.
So that's one thing. Number two, though, if you look across the country, there's other communities that have defense funds for their undocumented neighbors, such that folks who get caught up in deportation proceedings who might not have the income to find quality representation can get a little help from the community. And that's something that I also think is important. I mean, these are dire times. And we need to make sure that we're doing everything, again, when our community needs a local government on their side most, when the federal government, and in many cases even the state government, is dropping the ball. The State Trust Act was something we talked so much about 2 sessions ago. And this session, again, came and went and it didn't make it through. So I think we have a responsibility to act as a county on that front.
Definitely. I used to work for City of Rockville years ago, and I live in Rockville, so I may vote for you.
I hope so. I hope to earn your vote, but I expect to have to earn it.
Yes.
Where do you live? Can you talk about your neighborhood?
Sure. Yeah. I live in King Farm in an apartment right across from the Shady Grove Metro. I've lived there with my wife for about 3 years. So we like it there, and one of the reasons we like it there is because there's a lot of stuff we can walk to, and that's something I've been talking about on the campaign trail as well. We need to really prioritize walkability in neighborhoods across the board. And one thing that concerns me is that if you look at the places where you can walk to a lot of amenities and avail yourself of a lot of amenities and where it's easy to get around, those are oftentimes the communities where a lot of people are priced out. If you look at communities where you don't have to own 2 cars to get around, those are often communities where people are priced out. And I want to make sure that we look at that through more of a lens of equity, and that in places that are now more sprawling and purportedly more affordable, that we're doing what we can to connect folks to quality transportation, to give them good amenities so that they can walk to, that they don't have to get in the car, and to make it so that most families in this community don't have to own 2 cars to get by, because that's a tremendous burden.
One thing that worries me in the county and in my district is that there are areas where you live that is beautiful, and this area is very nice and is prospering a lot. But I also lived for 10 years in Derwood, and Derwood is also the same situation. Very beautiful, progressive areas, and then very ugly, dirty, with lots of trash. How would you plan to address those areas?
Sure. Well, there's a number of fronts that we have to make progress on. It's not simple. But from a principle standpoint, I think one of the most important things in our leaders who serve on the council and in other offices is there's people with social capital, political capital, and capital with money, right? Who show up, right? And have the time, finances, and wherewithal to advocate for their communities, right? And so they show up and they say, this is a problem, that's a problem, and they make a lot of noise. And they have every right to do that. That's an important thing, right? But there are other communities where people are working 2 or 3 jobs, where it's tougher to get by, where there might not be as many services. And it's not as simple a thing for folks who live in those communities to go out of their way to show up to a hearing when they may be at work.
But why do they have to go to hearings? I understand that part about going to hearings.
Right.
What does the county do?
So that's what I'm saying. We need to go to those communities.
We need
to listen. You have to be proactive. When you hold a hearing and the people who show up in the room, the 100 people who show up, say something, you can't take that as fact. You have to recognize that that is still a very small percentage of your constituents, that most of your constituents are outside of the room. And it's not on them. right? That's because of their lived reality, and that they're working 2 or 3 jobs, and they're doing what they need to do to keep a roof over their head and take care of their kids. So that you have to go outside of that hearing room and meet people where they are in the communities, and that's something that I would really be dedicated to as a leader.
Before you go,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask you about gun control.
Yes.
People are afraid.
Yes.
You can't even go to a movie or in school. Are going to be tough on guns? Can you
Sure.
tell me about your plans?
Yes.
What plans you have?
Yeah, we need to do everything in our power at every level of government on this issue right now. Our country is in an absolute crisis on this issue. I mean, it's inexcusable that kids are afraid to go to school and that families are afraid to go to the movie theater and so on and so on. So one thing that we did, one small thing that we did as a campaign is we took the day off and we followed a lot of our student leaders on the campaign downtown and followed their lead and went to the march and marched. And by the way, we also went to Leisure World, where a number of our volunteers in the campaign were leading a march of their own for their grandchildren. And it was a beautiful thing to see the cross-generational activism. So while gun control specifically is not something that the county council can do a ton about directly, I think that every single leader at every level has a responsibility to organize around this issue. And that's what we've tried to do a bit of in the course of this campaign in our own small way.
And on that note, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you,
I appreciate
Santiago.
you. Yeah,
Thank you to
Thank you.
all the
Thank you so
friends in Facebook. And we'll be back in a few minutes with Ana Sol Gutierrez.
Awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Awesome.